Hello there, welcome to the PlugBox Podcast, where we discuss all things EV and renewables and generally have a damn good chinwag. Anyway, on with the show. Hello there.
Good evening, Mr. Pete, and welcome everybody to another PlugBox Podcast. I think we're up to 11th episode? I'm losing track now, Pete.
No, I think it's 12, isn't it? I'm sure it's 12.
It could very well be. What I need to do is go back to YouTube and check on the previous episodes and listen again, which of course everybody can do, as well as listening live on stereo.
And like, comment and subscribe.
All of those cliche things. Yes, please.
Is that subtle enough?
Yes, very subtle. So we've got a number of things I think we want to talk about tonight, just to run through a few of those. We're talking BP Pulse price increases. So last week we spoke about Instavolt, and next one is jumping on the bandwagon. We'll talk about BP Pulse. Going to talk about Tesla burgers. It's inevitable. We're going to talk a little bit about some sales figures. Firstly, Renault, because we all know Pete is a huge fan now of the Zoe. An absolute convert. So we'll look at sales of Renault and general figures from Norway. Goodness, it's a long list tonight. What can I say?
So you mean we can have a damn good chinwag about it all?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So let's get stuck in, I think, with Tesla burgers, Pete. What's the story here?
So it seems that the techno king that is Elon seems to be, wanting to set up a kind of a themed diner, right? That burger joint, and apparently runs to whatever it is, the top 150 movie clips. But I don't think this is going to be a serious business line, if I'm honest with you. But it just seems to be Tesla splashing the cash and maybe having some fun. But I don't know. I like a burger while I'm charging. I'm sure a lot of other people do, so it's maybe not a daft move.
No, I mean, I think it was some time ago that somebody from Tesla actually said that they were considering opening some sort of restaurant chain, and the retro diner is certainly appealing to me. Sounds like fun. And of course, they have some good locations of superchargers all over the States. So it makes perfect sense that Santa Monica, I believe, is going to be the first one. I think the other point to remember is Elon's brother is restaurant owner and food producer. So he's got some good advice to hand.
Yeah, and it's a captive audience, right? The only thing I would say, I guess, is it'd be a quick, splash and dash almost, right? Because if it's going to be a V3, it doesn't take all that long to have a charge. So I don't think it's going to be a sit-down meal, as more of a quick burger and go.
Sounds like my cup of tea, to be honest.
They might not serve tea in Santa Monica, Pete.
No, probably not. It'll be some vegan something or other. Very much has its own culture of food in Santa Monica. All right, so still to come, as I mentioned, we'll talk about some EV sales, but I think, Pete, you're going to have a bit of a whinge now, are you not? BP Pulse.
Another whinge. I think we're going to have a start like a Pete's whinge section or something. There seems to be one every week.
Well, people need to stop making stupid decisions.
I mean, this one's kind of irked me more than the Instavolt thing. So Instavolt obviously put out something last week that the splendid government here in the UK are going to enforce a 20% VAT rate on electric public charging, which we went through in last week's podcast, so go check all that out. But you in the UK, you get charged 5% VAT for your home electricity. So how you can then charge 20% VAT on electrons that come out of a slightly different source, I have no idea, but maybe that's the logic of the current UK administration. But
there's
nonetheless,
no logic.
No, there is no logic. Nonetheless, Instavolt were charging 5% and put out a statement saying that their prices are going to increase from 35p to 40p to cover this rise in VAT. Now, this week's whinge centres around BP Pulse, which was Polar or Chargemaster and some other names, but the BP Pulse network here in the UK sent out a very sly email. No public statement or Instagram post or infomercial, just an email to members, which I am.
I'm not a member, but I'm a user, so I still got the email that I hasten to add they later corrected because they made a mistake in the first one.
And they increased the prices even more. So,
yes.
Yeah. So, because I'm a member and they send me an invoice once a month, which is never all that expensive, maybe £20 a month or something, BP have always charged 20% VAT for whatever reason. So they've had no hit in the announcement from the government because they were already choosing to pull in 20% VAT. Now, I don't want to be cynical, but if they were only obliged to pay 5%, but they were taking in, or at least saying they were taking in 20% VAT, then that might raise an eyebrow, but I don't want to get sued, and maybe I'm just overly cynical. But nonetheless, BP Pulse slyly sent out, as you say, 2 emails putting prices up, and quite significantly at that. So the main one kind of for rapid charging was rapid charging if you were a member that only costs a few pounds a month, was 15 pence a kilowatt hour, which is super competitive when you compare it to other networks, and that's now gone to 23 pence, if I'm correct.
I have the numbers and the details in front of me. So just to give everybody a bit of a lowdown, the company has said, and I quote, "The price increases this month will enable ongoing investment in the network, including a rollout of the new ultra-fast charging hubs, which will launch later this year. This will see subscribing customers who are paying £7.85 per month. They'll see a 4p per kilowatt increase for Pulse 7. I assume that's a 7 kilowatt charging post. An 8p per kilowatt increase on Pulse 50, which again I assume is the 50 kilowatt posts. And for the highest Pulse delivering post at 150, it will remain at 27p. And for those people that are not subscribing, a similar sort of increase is applied to their rates. So it will see the most expensive kilowatt delivery will be 42p, which when you cross the 40p boundary, that starts to become questionably ethical to me, frankly, considering at home I pay 5p a kilowatt at night. Not good.
Honestly, I think the investment piece is a load of crap, if I'm honest with you, because very simply put, all networks are spending a load of capex and investing cash in building a network. And they're sinking that investment in for that in future years it pays back. So raising the price is not going to allow them to suddenly start building more charge posts, right? A fast charger costs about 100 grand. So it doesn't make it any more sustainable. What makes it more sustainable is having the infrastructure there so that when the electric vehicle market segment grows, they get used. Kind of just putting the prices up in the short term is just going to alienate people because, as you say, when it starts going over 40p, someone starts doing the misguided, oh yeah, but my 10-year-old Volkswagen Golf diesel only costs 30 pence a mile. So they're not really helping themselves, and I don't think it's going to make a massive difference to the business, honestly speaking.
Nope. No, me neither. So slightly disappointing.
It just seems a cash grab that, again, they didn't put it on Instagram or any news channel or any social media. It was just a bit of an email out. Yeah, to say, oh yeah, we're putting prices up and we're putting it up because of some reason. And it just seems like they wanted to try and bury it in the bad news of Instavolt and some of the other networks that have come out publicly, to be fair to them, saying we're going to have to hike prices.
Speaking of hiking prices, that's a nice segue, Pete.
Ooh.
In a moment, we're going to talk about Tesla price increases, and then we're going to go on to talk about things like the Rimac and the iX UK prices. But first of all,
okay,
Tesla. They've increased their prices on a number of different vehicles, explained by Mr. Musk as ever via a tweet, replying to somebody who was upset at the price increase of various models, Model Y, Model 3, etc. So they're claiming that the prices increase are due to supply chain pressure industry-wide. Now, I'm assuming here that they are talking about semiconductor availability, which has become a problem in recent months because the semiconductor industry is starting to wind up again after the temporary closure of a lot of plants across the world due to COVID. It's not an industry you can simply just switch on and make parts. It takes time to process them and to get them out the door. So what are we saying here? Are Tesla paying more for the parts that are available and then they're passing the price on to their customer? That's what it suggests.
I mean, again, with all things Tesla, obviously I have to declare an interest that I'm invested in them. But I think people seem to be continually outraged by Tesla's frequent price changes, whether up or down. And I think a big part of that is Tesla being a kind of a victim of their own business model because, of course, they're direct to consumer. So any price change is directly visible on a website, whereas actually, as much as a regular traditional OEM might have a MSRP, manufacturer suggested retail price, the actual price you would pay if you were to go in and buy one from a dealer changes, I wouldn't say day to day, but certainly week to week, month to month, depending on what support there is from not only the dealer network, but also the manufacturer. But you just don't see it because it's not direct to customer. You have to get in the dealer to actually find out how much you're going to pay for a car. Whereas if Tesla wants to put the price up or down, the only way that they can communicate that is changing the website. And of course, everyone's constantly looking at Tesla, so everyone's constantly moaning that Tesla are changing the prices frequently. But maybe it's just the business model. But in terms of actually putting the prices up, so I think there's kind of two facets. So when you look at raw material, whether it's aluminium, nickel, obviously the silicon's been an issue in terms of fabs for semiconductors, which I think Tesla have been changing. They've all over the past year been going through the roof. And as you say, a lot of that is due to, basically demand outstripping supply because plants have been shut down or parts have not been sent on the water. So there's been too much demand and not enough suppliers. People have been turning stuff off and then turning things back on again. But I think also, again, maybe cynically from me, is for a number of quarters now, there's been a whiff, particularly in the US, about this new tax credit. So if Tesla want to gain a competitive advantage, then why would they not sandbag a little bit by inflating the price such that if there's a 7,500, 10,000 or 12,500 tax credit that's been rumoured, that ultimately they're going to make additional profit? Because in recent or quarters gone by, Tesla have been discounting cars because, of course, they exceeded the threshold for the 7,500 federal tax grant. So effectively, every other manufacturer had a $7,500 competitive advantage of Tesla. Whereas now maybe it's going in the opposite way, where they can afford to charge more for a car because there's a tax credit in the offing. So
I think equally, Tesla have been caught out with a little bit of cost reduction in some of their spec as well. They were called out this week for deleting lumber on the front passenger seat, which was interesting that Mr. Musk himself would reply to something as meaningful as a lumbar support. I mean, let's be honest, this is not something unique to Tesla. We're close to the industry, and we won't go into that thing. But every OEM does this. This is not unique to Tesla.
Yeah, and again, I think this is a couple of things. So someone, I think, reported that BMW were also doing the same. So as you say, we won't talk about the thingy, but generally a lot of manufacturers look to right size to corner phrase. But there seems to be something specific about lumbar and massage, because a lot of manufacturers have been going from standard to optional, just not offering it. So maybe something related to the air bladders that generally make lumbar and massage seats work. There's been something in that particular supply chain. It's quite a niche component. But yeah, Tesla's explanation, or Elon's explanation, I think, as you say, was that, they kind of looked at the data log. I'm amazed that the seat controls are logged or connected
that surprised me.
The car network, and saying that people don't use them. But I think lumbar support is kind of a feature that, you set and forget it, but you want to set it to something that's comfortable for you. No different to other cars of electric steering columns, which, you say, what's the point in an electric steering column? Because you set it once and you forget about it. It's like, you still want to set it. So
100%. And every human body is a different size and shape ergonomically. You cannot develop one size fits all seat. Typically, it's between what they call a 5th percentile female, so a smaller lady, versus a 95th percentile male. And we are getting very technical here. But you can't, without some level of adjustability, have a comfortable seating position for that range or that spectrum of person.
Yeah, so like I said, it seems odd because, yes, it is kind of a set and forget feature, especially if, it's just you as a driver or someone in the passenger seat. You kind of say it once and you don't use it again. But that kind of doesn't mean that you're not using the feature, because, as you say, if they just get rid of it, then there's not as much lumbar support. And if they put something in a fixed position, then it's not going to be great for everyone. As you say, it will fit kind of some of those statistical models, but not everyone. So yeah, it seems an odd one, but I think kind of the justifying, again, there's some issue in the supply chain in getting the component that actually makes the lumbar support work, and they're almost then trying to find a hypothesis as to how they can rationalize not having it. And not having it is, we've looked at the data logs and people don't fiddle about with the switch much, so we're going to get rid of it because no one uses it. And it's just like, well...
and mass reduction, therefore your car can go further.
Yeah, it can't though, can it? Just pump your tyres up for what it's worth.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
But it seems an odd one. And again, it's just fact that raw material and component prices are going up. And I think Tesla are reacting to that. And then I think also from just a pure business point of view, they've got a whiff of the tax credit, and they're looking to try and inflate the prices to get a competitive advantage again when that comes in. So I don't think it's anything particularly nefarious, but yeah, the lumbar support one's an odd one.
Certainly is. Okay, still to come, we're going to talk about Rimac and Mercedes EQG, but first of all, we have some hot news related to the BMW iX. So the prices and spec have been confirmed for the UK ahead of sales from November. It's a bold style.
There is nothing hot about the iX. Nothing.
Well, I'm trying to find something good to say about it, and I'm struggling when it comes to the appearance, I'm afraid. I'm sure it's probably a Marmite car. And for those of you who don't know, you're either going to love it or hate it. I have to say I'm the latter of the two, and I wouldn't be going out quickly to spend £70,000 on a car that looks like this. 70,000, and
from 70,000.
From 70. Yes, yeah. So the cheap one is £70,000, but I love the i3, which is still available and has been for many moons now. It's a great looking little car as far as I'm concerned. I think the technology in it is starting to date a little bit now, which was baffling why they stuck it in the Mini E, but nonetheless, that's a different story. But yeah, so the iX available from November. This is a car with a, let's have a look, 70,000 price tag, on sale from November. Yeah. There is a Sport and an M Sport version, so that's going to add a bucket load more cash to that price. 380-mile range and an up to 100 kilowatt hour battery, so quite sizable powertrain in there. I don't think we need to say any more than that, do we, Pete? Really, it's not many people are going to think that's a pretty car.
I honestly dislike it when people complain about car styling, because
you're complaining at me.
Hold on, I'm getting there. Because, when a new design comes out and they're trying to be a bit adventurous, they're trying to do something different. Because a lot of times people complain that, it just looks the same as the last one, or it's just been tweaked, or the famous one with German cars, it's the same sausage, different length. And I think it's a shame when people criticise different styling. However, in this case, it is pig ugly, and I have no idea what BMW are doing recently, because, we've heard this thing that, but the Chinese market like big grills and this, that, and the other. But like the 3 Series, the 4 Series, and now this. No, he doesn't need a grill, but BMW are doing the whole power of choice strategy, aren't they? So as much as it's an EV, the underlying product has got an architecture that supports ICE as well, and PHEV for that matter. So, it just looks very ugly, and not just from the front. The back look weird as well. The interior is not great. I don't think it looks too bad, but it's not great. And as you say, 70 grand from 70 grand. It's a big ask.
To me, it looks like the steering wheel's on upside down. It just looks a bit strange. I'm not. The saving grace is I like the blue seatbelts, and let's leave it there.
Do you think we're ever going to get a sponsorship from BMW?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Let's move on.
It's our honest feedback, BMW, for those of you listening from the Mach themselves. What can I say? You make good cars, you don't make pretty cars. Certainly not at the moment. Segue then. Mercedes EQG. Bit of a brute, this car. So news out this week is that EQG 560 and 580 are names that have been trademarked by Mercedes. So clearly the brand is going to expand their electric architecture to include the G-Wagon. Expected debut next year, so 2022. I think we can expect the Hyperscreen infotainment system on this car. It's a pricey car generally. And I can imagine a sizable battery pack, perhaps from the EQS, 108 kilowatts. Should give that car a decent range, around 400 miles, even though it has got the aerodynamics of a brick. But nonetheless, it's quite a cool car. Pete, opinions?
I didn't think this was real, when it was when I first read about it. But I guess it's similar to Podcast Pass, right, where we've said that I think manufacturers are finally kind of waking up to the fact that even during the last year, 18 months, the whole bunch of cars that they still managed to sell, as many as they can build, are electric cars. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but there's going to be, especially for the kind of G-Wagon, which as much as it's sold as a rugged off-roader and,
it's never used off-road though, is it?
No, a modern take on the original Geländewagen. It's used in cities, and very quickly those cities like LA and London and Beijing and all the other places that G-Wagons hang out are not going to be allowing 4-litre bi-turbo V8s to roll around. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be a thing. So, yeah, as you say...
Of course, it's going to lose its iconic side exit exhausts, though.
That is a shame.
I don't get me wrong, I'm sure everybody listening agrees that we are probably EV evangelists and we are strong promoters of EV, but I do like a side exit exhaust, particularly on a G-Wagon. And it looks a bit odd without them. The running boards are now looking a bit bare without 2 giant exhausts hanging out from underneath.
Yeah, but as you say, they'll take the stuff from the EQS and the EQS SUV that's apparently coming as well, and stick it in that. So,
yeah,
I don't think it'll go very far though, especially if it keeps that. Well, it's almost slab-sided, but it's slab-sided at the front. It's got a very prominent upright windscreen, which is kind of like a brick.
They'll probably only be hanging out around Knightsbridge anyway, Pete. So, I mean, the distance that they're likely to cover won't be too bad, and they won't have to pay congestion charge anymore.
Fair.
Reasonable. It's cleaner for us to breathe anyway here in London.
I had an interesting one about congestion charge, actually. It's a bit of a side tangent, because I visited London not so long ago. And
okay.
The congestion charge, you are factually correct, is exempt, or you are exempt if you've got an electric car.
But you still have to book it.
You have to apply, and you have to send off your V5, which in the UK is like the registration document, and there's a £10 fee for doing it. So
that I wasn't aware of.
Not only is it not free, it's quite bureaucratic to get an exemption.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, if you're just fleeting in and out in London a few times a year, it's a bit of a faff, honestly speaking. Obviously, it makes sense if you live there, but not what it says on the tin. But anyway, we've gone off piece there.
But it is a good opportunity for us to criticise once again the kind of the double message that the British government is sending. Transition to electric. We want clean environment, and then we make it extremely difficult for you to bring your electric car into London.
Yeah, but the thing that irked me, and it's I'm not the brightest technologist, but how the congestion charge works is there's a load of ANPR cameras, automatic number plate recognition, that if you drive in and you don't pay within a day or so, then you get a fine. So it's reading your number plate and it knows you're there. But if it can do that, and I've got an electric car, it knows that it's an electric car because it's registered as such. Why do I still need to fill in a form and send off a document that I've got to scan to someone in an office somewhere and wait over a week to get a reply? Like, you know I'm driving an EV because you're scanning my number plates. Like,
correct. It shouldn't need a person or a letter to intervene, should it, really?
No, it's very odd. Anyway.
Fortunately, there are some countries in the world that are a little more progressive. The main one, I think, is Norway. So I'm going to jump over to Norway. I'm getting good at this now. Norway, plug-in electric car sales have surged in recent months. And the numbers in this month are very interesting because it includes the Mach E. And the Ford Mustang Mach E is topping EV sales in May of this year. So that's showing, I think, a very strong sales performance in Norway for that vehicle. I think it's to be slightly underestimated so far, the Mach E. It's doing rather well, generally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But the overall sales in Norway just blow my mind, honestly. The BEV sales in the month of May were up 147%. So they are now equivalent to 60% of the market share. That's astonishing. That's how the balance should be in any country in the world, honestly speaking.
I mean, to quote Uncle Eel on the Techno King, it's all about the forcing function, right? Like, they're actively incentivizing people to transition to electric vehicles. And, it's the classic chicken and egg, right? Like, until enough EVs are sold, then EVs aren't going to be cheap enough for mass adoption. We have a private conversation before this about volumes and whatnot. But, with any product, if the volume's super low, then the cost's going to be super high.
Correct.
And to get to the inflection point, there needs to be some external force applied, and in this case, an incentive, because otherwise it's just too expensive by itself.
Tax the dirty diesels to supplement or reduce the cost for the consumer of the clean vehicles.
Yes, that would make sense, wouldn't it? But
It would.
The problem is then you get the old argument of but that affects the person that's running around in a £200 Corsa, and I'm not saying it doesn't, but honestly speaking, the people that pay the most tax, the people that use the most fuel, which is not the person that's running around in a £200 Corsa taking the kids to school and doing the shopping once, twice a week. It's people that are sat on motorways in Range Rovers. But anyway, another rant.
Yeah, dangerous. Keep up the good work, Norway. That's all I can say. And honestly, any other government should be looking towards them for inspiration on how it should be done.
Absolutely.
Speaking of sales, Renault. So we all know from podcast past that you are having a love affair with the Renault Zoe.
It's a love-hate relationship, if I'm honest with you, Pete.
Is it?
I love the interior, but the exterior, I don't think it suits my manly ideals, if you know what I mean. But no. I like being in it, but I don't like being seen in it. But maybe that's just a bit shallow of me.
Well, that's how you can't look at it when you're driving it.
No, that's very true. I tell you what I do like, though, which is one of the best features of any car I've ever been in, is just above the glove
bold
box.
Statement.
It is just above the glove box and just below where the passenger airbag is. There's a little shelf.
You've got a mantelpiece.
I have a little mantelpiece, which is great for a £1 coin for the shopping trolley and my RFID cards for the Polar network and the Shell network. But it's got a nice little shelf.
How quaint.
It is very nice. We might have to take a picture for it of it.
Oh, we can put it on the Instagrams.
Oh yeah, good shout. You never know, might get some sponsorship with our uncontroversial opinions on things.
Yeah, we just tell it as it is. We're ordinary consumers, are we not?
Yes. Let's go for yes.
Yes, I think we should go for yes too.
Anyway, Renault. We've gone off piste again.
Yes. On to the crux of the story. Renault have stated in the last week or so that more than 10% of their passenger car sales in Europe are now all electric. So that's great. And that is up 183% year on year.
So what electric cars do Renault actually make? So we know the wonderful Zoe.
They make the Renault
Twizy?
Zoe.
Do they make many Twizzies?
I don't know if they're still making Twizy. Somebody perhaps in the comments can correct me. We've got the Twingo ZE.
Good shout, yeah.
We've got the Kangoo ZE.
Kangoo, yeah, that one. Is that a
I
car,
think
though?
We've got...
a van?
It's a van. Yeah, van. Okay. We've got the Master ZE, which I think is also a van.
Okay.
But on the way, we've also got the Dacia Spring Electric.
The Chinese rebadge.
Yes, correct. And we have now, I think, retired as the City KZE as well. So more than you think.
Interesting.
And we have we've talked in the past to think about some tempting-looking EVs coming from Renault, namely the Renault 5 modern remake. That looks a cracking car. So would you feel a bit more comfortable in the Renault 5 remake than the Zoe, Pete?
I don't know. I think for the summer I'm going to have to switch it up and get something else from onto, because the Zoe's been great, but I don't know. I think I need something a little bit more sporty for the summer months.
It's always good for content, Pete.
Well, absolutely. I've been told, there was a newsletter, I think, shared early this week or the end of last week, maybe over the weekend, that Onto are adding some more cars. So they've added the ID3 now. Obviously, there's the Fisker news that we talked about before, but that won't be coming for a long while, nor will it be very cheap. What else have they put on there recently? I think they changed the price of the DS3 crossback E-Temps. Anyway. And an E-Up as well, which is a proud Yorkshireman. I'm all about a bit of an E-Up.
That's a great little car. Big fan of the E-Up.
Most affordable offering. I think it's $339 a month. Which
it's like a roller skate, that car.
Yes, but
I think if it was a house, you'd describe it as You'd describe it as bijou if it was a house.
Oh,
Yeah, great little
maybe
car.
so.
So I think your listeners will have to tune into future episodes to see what you go for. But the question is, will the Rimac be on there?
Yes. So there's been some great content about this car. So the Rimac, which I watched a video yesterday where apparently you're not supposed to, well, it's not pronounced Rimac, it's pronounced as something else, but it escapes me the pronunciation, but maybe that's the appalling approach of English people to the languages. But yeah, apparently you pronounce Rimac in Croatian differently to that. And the name of the car, so this is the C2 or Concept 2. So there was the Concept 1 that was released a while ago, which Richard Hammond famously rolled down a hill in Switzerland somewhere. Yeah. That was, I don't know, 1,500 horsepower or something stupid. More than enough power. And now the
which is
C2,
why they've added more.
Absolutely, yeah, that's why they needed to add more. The C2 or Concept 2 has now been renamed the Nevera. So not the pickup truck, but Nevera, which apparently is a name in Croatian for a quickly arriving Mediterranean storm. And I think if you have to explain a name so much, then maybe it's not really a good starter. But anyway, they can call it what it wants. And there's been a lot of press adoration for this car because it does the quarter mile in less than 9 seconds, a lot less than 9 seconds. And my point of reference is in the Fast and Furious films when kind of Vin Diesel character says to Paul Walker that you owe me an 11-second car. So I always think quarter mile is a bit American, but anything less than 11 seconds is quick. And anyway, in one of the particular videos, I think it did an 8.6 with a trap speed of 180 miles an hour. So it's a quick car. Basically does 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds and has got 2,000 horsepower and something silly like that. But the interesting part of it, which I think was quite political, was one of the videos they did a drag race against a Ferrari. And
this would be from our friends over at CarWow.
Yes. Is Mate Rimac couldn't or didn't want to or wasn't allowed to get in the Ferrari and drive it. So Rimac, of course, are part owned now in a significant way by Porsche and I think Hyundai as well. So yeah, probably the Porsche reason is why he wasn't allowed to touch, sit in or drive a Ferrari. But yeah, the Ferrari, which was a SF90 Stradale, which is Ferrari's kind of first proper PHEV, was absolutely spanked. Like, it was embarrassing how quick the Rimac moved away from it. But I think the really cool part about this car is not only the silly horsepower and the silly performance, but also, it should basically do 300 miles on a charge. It's designed to be kind of a kind of grand touring car. And even the fact that I think it weighs over 2 tons, it's still got the performance, it's still got the range. It charges at, I think, over 300 kilowatts.
It does.
So I think that one of the other pieces was, you can charge it pretty much in 18 minutes, which, one we've said before again in podcast pass, if you're on a long journey, you want more than 18 minutes for a leg stretch, a bathroom break and a coffee. But even when you think about a relatively busy petrol station, once you've queued up, you've pulled up to the pump, you've filled it, you've walked into the petrol station, you've had a browser of magazines, you've got a bottle of pop or a coffee and a Bounty, or the chocolate bars are available, you've paid, you've walked back outside. Is that not approaching 18 minutes?
I'd also like to point out, though, that if you are the owner of an electric hypercar that probably is going to cost somewhere in the region of 1 to 2 million euros, that you've probably got space at home to charge it.
Yeah, but I think people will use these cars. I mean, one of the things that I was quite surprised about is it was always touted as a really expensive car, and I don't know whether it's 2 million including tax or 2 million excluding tax. I think at that point it almost doesn't matter. But they're going to build 150 of them. So I think the concept one of which was crashed, I think they only made 6 or 7, whereas this one they're making 150. So as much as some will be putting collections in bubbles and never driven and never touched, which is fine. People do that with art and bottles of whiskey. It's no different, really. I think some of them will be driven and maybe even driven on track. So I think you'll still want to rapid charge it either at track or on the way there or back. But I think there'll be some people that use this car.
I hope
it staggers me. It staggers me that the record there's going to be 150 people that are going to spend 2 million on an electric hypercar. But props to them. Maybe someone will have 2. I don't know.
So they are now in production. Actually, you can go out and buy one of the 150 Neveras being built, all of which are bespoke. I hasten to add. So there are 3 standard specs, but of course, I think there is some scope for some bespoke editions. There's the GT, the Signature, and the Timeless. And every car will be tested and signed off by the company CEO, a guy called Mr. Rimac. Mate Rimac, his name is. Seems quite a character, actually, from the videos I've seen.
I think it's pronounced Mate.
Mate. Okay. I'm willing to be corrected. I apologise some way.
Oh, I'd love one in British racing green over a tan interior.
Yeah, would you really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you feel more manly in that than your Zoe?
I mean, who wouldn't?
I don't know. Like, I'm sure you're going to call me old in a moment, but this type of car generally, and this one is a bit of an exception because it's an EV, but the car it was racing in the Car Wow video doesn't excite me. I just don't get a buzz out of hypercars anymore. Maybe once upon a time, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, I think it is because you're old, but nonetheless, I don't think I'm as up to date as what I used to be. I used to be able to quote all the times and prices and power outputs and lap times and all the rest of it. And as much as I'm still kind of interested, I don't think I'm as keenly aware of all the developments as what I once was. But yeah, it's worth watching the videos. There's a few ones. There's one with Johnny Smith, which I think is called. What's he called now? The Late Break Show. Presumably because he couldn't get any sponsorship when he was called Car Perverts. And as you say, Matt over at Car Wow did a great piece as well, and got an interesting present as well. So that's worth a watch. But yeah, it was embarrassing how quickly it pulled away from that Ferrari.
Left for dust.
Yeah, like the Ferrari, of course, has got an electrical assist. So actually, they were both quite quick off the line, but that's more limited to traction than the true performance of the car. But yeah, once it was moving, the Rimac, as you say, just left it for dust. So sign of things to come, I think. Where it goes after this, I'm not sure though. Do you know what I mean? Like, how much power can you keep? Can you keep adding? I think
there's got to be a maximum upper limit. I mean, the Plaid performance models coming out of Tesla are claiming some crazy figures, and of course, the Roadster that is yet to materialize. That's got to be as close as to the upper limit.
I was a bit sad, I got a piece of paper and pen out. Because I thought, 8.62, I think, was the time that Car Wow did the quarter mile. And it was about 186 that it crossed the line at, which is ridiculous that you can go from 0 to 186 in 8.6 seconds, never mind cover a quarter mile. But I did the old V equals U plus AT. So, yeah, there you go. So I was like, what is that accelerating? And when you work it out, on average, of course, the acceleration would be more to start with. I'm sure drops a little bit, even though we're only talking about 8 or 9 seconds. But it was averaging just less than 1G. So in theory, you could hold something on the headrest, launch, And again, in
It
theory,
stays there.
it would stay there. And again, that's an average. I'm sure that it would be pulling more than 1G off the line. But yeah, it's just crackers that it's almost faster than falling.
Yeah. And before too long, it will become too uncomfortable for most passengers and drivers. That's vomit-inducing if it's done too regularly.
I think that's what's been said about a few EVs, as you say, the Tesla cars. They were used to be the ludicrous mode, and Plaid's supposed to be delivered, but although it's supposed to be delivered in February, but that's another story for another day. It's a party piece, but it's not comfortable to do that.
No.
With it being so instant, but anyway, no, a great car. And would I have one if I had the money? Probably not, but I'd like a driving one.
You could afford to hire one for a bit.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it's like a super yacht. I'm sure someone would charter me one for a day or two.
I'm certain.
That level.
Oh, well, I think, Pete, that takes us to the end of this week's episode. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Was lots to talk about, and I think that's becoming synonymous. Actually, there's a lot of news every week on the subject, so very easy for content. So don't forget to tune in, everybody. I think next week, and we'll talk more. But I think that's probably it for this week.
Cool. Cheers, Pete.
Thank you very much. Speak to you again soon. Bye now.